Along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
Football Focus doing. Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady. We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Do you not understand that they are that way because you're Joe Flacco?
And you just like to discredit things that people deserve credit for.
That you can't possibly be expected to defend that.
Talk about the game, Sam. So who cares about what people think about us?
Yeah, I like football season, and all the things that go with it.
Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo back here with Sam Monson. We are previewing all of the Week 14 NFL action.
True.
Yep. Yeah, it is. I'm not lying.
Good start.
We're live on YouTube. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. And you ready to get into it?
Yep.
Now, as always, the Wednesday show yesterday, we previewed the Thursday night game. So that was Steelers and Vikings. Yesterday's show, we had all sorts of good discussions. I rambled about something about our grading system, and you just mocked me. It was a good show. It was a good show overall. We talked about TJ Watt for MVP.
Beautiful Manscaped transition.
The Manscaped transition. By the way, follow the entire podcast at PFF NFL Pod. That's a new Twitter account. And once we get to 1,000 or so followers, we're going to give away, watch this, Super Bowl blueprints. Hall of Famers reveal the keys to football's greatest dynasties or dynasties. Mm-hmm. Bill Poley and Vic Carucci, we've got this book to give away. Sam got it for free, and now he's going to give it to you for free once we get to 1,000 followers on the PFF NFL Pod, maybe 2,000.
It's going to cost me postage.
It is.
Maybe we get PFF postage.
Oh, yeah, we definitely expect that. Absolutely. Chris is, and we know Chris listens to the show, and he'll sign off on that.
Maybe we've got like a corporate, mailing system these days.
We might.
That's
we will
I'm saying. Like,
talk to HR.
Find somebody and be like, hey, could we throw this in the mail?
Yeah, just leave it from here. Well, either way, we'll get that. We'll save you those few bucks.
Perfect.
So anyway, follow us at PFF NFL Pod. We'll find a lucky follower to get this free book.
Yep.
That we were gifted.
Yes. Free book from us.
Regifting.
Free book to you.
That's what the holidays are all about.
That's what I'm saying.
Regifting. We'll have other gifts that you guys can buy for people later in the show. Anyway, it's our new Twitter account, and we could put our funny outtakes and all that stuff. If we're funny, I don't know. Any humor that comes out of this?
We
show?
Posted a couple of things. We posted your Manscaped transition. We posted your Bill Polian story. I think that was very good. The other thing we need to send people to at the top of the show, rather than like at the end when they might not be listening anymore, is if contact at pff.com. Contact at pff.com and let us know what features on PFF's products you like using, what you use the most, where you find the most value, and what you would like to see. Like what kind of feature in a PFF product would you like? And tell them we sent you. Each podcast is asking this. Tell them Sam and Steve sent you, and this is what you like.
Yes, do that, please. All right. We ready to get into this?
Yeah, let's go.
As always, we go through the biggest games of the week in a little bit more detail. So let's start with the Tampa Bay Bucs hosting the Buffalo Bills. We'll have to look at Green Line for the updated lines. I updated the lines last night. Is that usually about where you are?
Yeah.
I had it at 3.5. It was at 3.5 last night. Buffalo Bills at the Tampa Bay Bucs. The weather should be a little bit different for the Bills as they travel to Tampa. Should be in the 70s.
Yes.
Don't think we're going to see any rain. It will not. We probably won't have 40 to 50 mile an hour wind gusts as they did the other night. But the Bills at 7-5, and you made the point. on yesterday's show, people are overreacting to a game that they said, don't overreact to this Monday night game. But the bottom line is the Bills are 7-5, and they're going up against the Bucs, in danger of falling to 7-6. And you could make the argument 2 weeks ago, hey, the Bills are the most well-rounded team in the NFL. They can pass the ball, stop the pass. Maybe their run game's not great, but I mean, they have ways to win. And now they're in danger of falling to 7-6. What are you looking for in this Bills-Bucs game?
Yeah, and it's not so much overreacting to the result. Like, the result was pretty bad for Buffalo, like a serious blow. They now only have a 33% chance of winning their division, according to PFF's power rankings. There's still 76% chance to make the playoffs, which is obviously the most important part. But like, that was a body blow to what they want to do. If they lose again this week, which is eminently possible, that's another pretty significant blow. Then, of course, you've got the Patriots on the horizon again. I mean, they're not screwed, but they're getting into some trouble that we didn't think was even possible earlier in the season. I think this game's really interesting because I think they're now in the category of there's an established blueprint to play Buffalo on both sides of the ball, much like there was with Kansas City earlier in the season and may still be. We've seen that Buffalo is not capable of standing up to powerful, overwhelming ground attacks. The Indianapolis Colts, the New England Patriots, they were able to come up with some big stops at some key times, but generally they were blown off the ball and dominated on the ground. Yeah. So does Tampa Bay look at that and say, well, we have a really good offensive line. We've got Lenny in the backfield, Ronald Jones. We've got some power players. Okay, we've also got Tom Brady and a bevy of wide receivers that we want to get involved in the game, but this is going to be a game where we swing and pivot to this ground attack and just establish dominance physically up front. Or do they go, no, we have Tom Brady, we like to air it out, that's how we're going to play. I think how they approach this game is going to be pretty interesting.
Yeah, the Bucs can. I think they could really go either way. The interesting numbers here too. The Buffalo Bills pure coverage grade #1 in the NFL, but this is the first game we're going to see what happens without Tre'Davious White, because he's out for the season, and obviously he would not have been a factor the other night on the 3 dropbacks that Mac Jones had. But this will be the first time we see, okay, how does that affect Buffalo's coverage unit, right? A team that generally likes to play, they like not necessarily too high, but they do invite the run a little bit. They play more nickel. They are somewhat encouraging teams to run the ball and kind of like, playing the odds that they can play the run with their defensive front rather than extra safeties all the time. And the Bucs are coming off a game against the Falcons where they just didn't stop passing. Mm-hmm. They just passed. I mean, Brady threw the ball over 50 times. Fourth quarter, they were up 10. They're still chucking it around. Like, they didn't see the advantage in the run game the other day. They saw the advantage where Brady was pressured 4 times on over 50 dropbacks against Atlanta.
They almost had the exact opposite game plan of New England.
Yeah,
right?
They were like, we're just going to throw it.
Where at some point, sort of late in the first quarter, it was like the Patriots legitimately might not pass the ball at all in this game. They might run every single offensive snap. For a while, it looked like Tampa Bay was not going to run the ball at all. They were going to pass every single time they had an offensive snap. Like, Brady was on pace for like 80 attempts or something by the end of the first quarter. It was nuts.
Yeah, and now, again, every week's different. Last week it's in a dome. The Bucs ran a lot of hurry up. They've been doing that the last couple weeks. I think that's now that Brady's they started early in the season, but now that he's more comfortable in the offense, having that hurry up offense as a weapon, I think is just it's an added weapon, for this Bucs offense. So I think that matchup on that side of the ball is going to be a great one. How do the Bucs attack this? I do think they'll run the ball more because of the Bills' defensive front and what they can do with a pretty good offensive line there. So that matchup's fun. And then the other side, Josh Allen, again, in better weather, not having to cut the wind with his cannon for an arm, but going up against a Bucs defense that's been, we'll say, opportunistic as far as turnovers go. The Bucs defense they've had bouts this year where opposing offenses pick them apart through the air and they just go and move the ball. But in that Indianapolis game a couple weeks ago, the Bucs came up with some key turnovers, interceptions, strip sacks. Josh Allen hasn't really done a great job of taking care of the ball really at any point in his career. But the difference has been, he leads the league in positively graded throws. Like, he adds a ton of value. But I think it's my generic. It's going to come down to turnovers, right? I mean, if Allen puts the ball in harm's way, which he tends to do once or twice a game, if not more, if the Bucs take advantage, it's going to be really tough for the Bills to overcome that.
Yeah, and it isn't just a sort of empty platitude or cliche, because the Buffalo Bills are experiencing the same issue that Kansas City is, which is if teams show them those too high coverage shells, essentially take away the deep ball and force them to be patient and win in that ugly, boring style, that's where the problems arise. And that's where Josh Allen gets frustrated and puts the ball in harm's way and starts pressing and essentially causing turnovers. So Tampa Bay, I don't think, is a defense that generally plays that kind of football. They're not bad at taking away explosive pass plays. They're, I think, 10th in the NFL. They play cover 3 as by far their most prevalent coverage shell. They're not necessarily that kind of too high team that will stop everything. So I'm curious, what, again, like do they adapt what they do to play the specific game plan that causes Buffalo problems on both sides of the ball? Or do they just say, no, we're better than Buffalo, we'll play what we always play, let's go?
The other interesting element to this, so we'll see how Tampa Bay plays there, but Tampa Bay's, so like their run defense grade is not the best in the league anymore. They've been run on a little bit as far as are they winning blocks, and especially even just last week against the Falcons. The Falcons had, when they ran, a lot of success with Cordero Patterson. But the Bills are also one of those teams that does not bang their head against the wall when you see a Vita Vea, because the Bucs run defense is more name driven than performance driven over these last couple weeks, is my point. It's they've got fast linebackers, they've got Vita Vea. Usually when the Bills see that type of defensive front, they do what we said the Bucs did last week. They said, it's a Josh Allen game. You're going to go throw the ball. We've seen the Bills have games where they've thrown the ball 20 times before they had their third carry and all that stuff. And we've seen other teams have that success against the Bucs at times this year, where they don't even try to run the ball and they just chuck it around. The Colts 2 weeks ago did a great job. It just turnovers killed them, right? Is this a Josh Allen game? Is it really just all on him winning through the air? Or this Bills team that has tried to run the ball a little bit more in recent weeks with Breida adding some speed to the mix and all that. They've tried to run the ball to add balance. I just don't know if this is the game where they're going to look at that matchup and say, yeah, let's do that again. I think the Bills are going to try to put it in Josh Allen's hands and say, go get him. Go be our star.
Yeah, but the question is sort of, are they going to do that with that, you need to be patient. If Tampa Bay is going to play that type of defense that takes away the deep shot that you love so much, you're going to have to we want the ball in your hands, but you need to be careful with it. You can't just press and go nuts and try and force all these passes in that aren't necessarily there. That's where the problems have come for Josh Allen this season, is where teams have forced him to be patient, and he hasn't been. He's been aggressive, and that's where he gets into trouble.
So I love this matchup, the whole everything about it. Bills, coming off a short week, a tough loss. You never know what you're going to get. I mean, it's not a rivalry or anything like that. Brady and the Bills have played each other a million times through the years, but it's one of those it's one of those games that you mark at the beginning of the season, like this could be a Super Bowl preview, and it still could be. But boy, the Bills need this more.
The Bills are in a really weird spot because I think they are a really good team still. But they just match up badly against several specific sides. Multiple of them are going to make the playoffs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, they've kind of constructed this roster to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and a Kansas City Chiefs team that might not exist anymore in terms of how they're built. But all of a sudden, it's like they sort of took for granted the idea of getting to the AFC Championship game, right? We'll brush aside all these other lesser sides, and then we've constructed this team that can beat Kansas City in the AFC Championship game. All of a sudden, the most difficult matchups they're likely to face are the ones before getting to the AFC Championship game. If Kansas City happens to be waiting for them, then they actually match up pretty well. But, can they beat a Tennessee team if they're dominating on the ground? Okay, Derrick Henry makes that easier. Can you beat Indianapolis in a wild card round? Can you beat New England if that happens again? Those are the teams. And Tampa Bay is an interesting sort of split the difference. They can go either way in terms of which type of game plan they run. So do they just play their normal game and go, whatever, let's just see who the better team is? Or do they look at Buffalo and say, no, this is a team that really struggles against physicality on either side of the ball. Let's make that happen.
Fascinating because, since week 6, Buffalo's 3-4 with losses to the Titans, the Jaguars, the one of the weird games, losing 9-6, crushed by the Indianapolis Colts and beaten by the Patriots. Those the hard-nosed, physical, run-first types of teams. Is that a trend? Is that just what the Bills are? And I think it is interesting that you're taking this as like they're trying to beat the Chiefs, and oh, by the way, they're losing to teams that they just don't match up well against. We'll see. It should be a good one. From a Bucs perspective, I know I said the Bills need it more. From the Bucs perspective, they're trying to get that number 1 seed. They're a game behind the Arizona Cardinals. They're tied with the Green Bay Packers. And on paper, this is the Bucs' most difficult game for the rest of the year. They've got the Bills, Saints, and then Panthers twice, and the Jets. So Gronk said Brady's in playoff mode. He's focused here. So Tommy's intense right now. And so highest graded quarterback against the highest graded coverage unit this week. Where are you going on this one?
I think you have to lean Tampa Bay. I think they're capable of running the blueprint on both sides of the ball. And until Buffalo shows that it can stop that, I think that they're probably going to see that. So if Tampa Bay runs that, I think they win and they cover. The only way it doesn't happen is if they do what the Raiders did, and say, I see that nice blueprint over there. I'm going to ignore that and just run what we want to run.
All right, I'm going to go Tampa Bay as well. I think they'll have answers for Buffalo's defense. I think we'll learn a lot about what Tre'Davious White means going forward here. And the Bucs have just been they've just been so good at home. So I think that's also a big factor here. Also a factor is Manscaped launching new products, including their all-new ultra-premium body wash and 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. It's time to give yourself or someone who needs it the gift of beautiful skin, hair, and balls this holiday season. Go to manscaped.com. Use promo code PFF for 20% off plus free shipping. Inside the Performance Package 4.0, you'll find the signature Lawnmower 4.0. This electric trimmer has proprietary advanced skin-safe technology to reduce cuts on your nuts. It's also waterproof, so you can use it in the shower, Sam. As we always remind people.
Or the rain, or the pool, wherever you want to do that.
Wherever, it's all waterproof. Test it out. Just test it. They also launched, as we mentioned, the 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. They all have the key ingredients for hydrating, nourishing, and conditioning the scalp and strengthening your hair at the same time. What? We are 100% not legally liable for anywhere you might be testing the Lawnmower 4.0 in water-based situations. No, we are not. We need our own terms and conditions here.
Yeah.
But it's waterproof. And 'tis the season to load up on Manscaped products. Get yourself, your dad, your brother, and friends the best gift of all. The Manscaped Performance Package 4.0. There's all sorts of stuff in the Performance Package 4.0 as well.
It's like those, please drink responsibly ads. It's like, please shave your nuts responsibly.
Please shave. All right. When I finish this, you give
our terms and conditions. I'd have to think about them.
Get 20% off and free shipping with the code PFF at manscaped.com. It's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use the promo code PFF. Clean up your nuts and make Santa proud this year. Jingle balls to the wall.
PFF is not legally liable for any shaving incidents. Please shave your nuts responsibly.
Well done. Well done. Look at you. We're just taking Manscaped to the whole new level. We appreciate Manscaped.
Yeah.
Especially this holiday season.
Go buy some Manscaped stuff.
All right. Los Angeles Rams at the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals by 2.5. This is the game, Sam. This is the game.
The game.
That you're supposed to. This is why you go get Matthew Stafford.
Monday Night Football.
It's Monday Night
Football.
Time. Yes. Oh, it's going to be great.
No Mannings, though, right? No Mannings.
There's no Mannings this week?
I don't think the Mannings are coming back until the playoffs, maybe?
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah.
That's too bad. This is the game. This is why you get Matthew Stafford.
Okay.
To win this type of game. You also got him to win the type of game a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
At Green Bay. But when you're facing the division-leading Arizona Cardinals, 10-2 Arizona Cardinals, a Cardinals team that has been maybe just the best all-around team in the NFL. They continue to impress. I'm not going to let the 5 fans in my mentions that are attacking me, I'm not going to let them skew my view of the Arizona Cardinals and just how impressive they've been this season. But what are you looking for in this game here with the Rams and Cardinals?
But you obviously hate the Arizona Cardinals.
I am completely biased against them, yes.
I mean, Stafford.
Of all the teams in the NFL, that's who I chose.
Right.
Arizona.
Of course. That's the the interesting thing, right? Does Stafford show up this time? I mean, Eric was joking in our live shows that Stafford is not a win in Lambeau kind of guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely winning a dome guy, though.
Right, well, there's the thing, right? You don't have to win in Lambeau. Now you get to win in the desert in the nice dome with no wind, no weather, no, nothing bad. You just go out there and ball. And Stafford has these inbuilt excuses now of injuries and constant pain and yada, yada. And, the last game, Stafford had been telling them it's not an excuse. So look, you can't have it both ways. It's either an excuse or it isn't. And if it is an excuse, how do you explain what happened in the first 8 games of the season? So let's assume that Stafford is no more or less injured than any other starting quarterback at this point in the season. This is who he is. He now needs to go out there and show that he's capable of putting up those big numbers and not making mistakes with the ball and getting it where it needs to go. And I understand he doesn't have Robert Woods anymore, but these are the things.
Does have Cooper Kupp.
Does have Cooper Kupp, does have OBJ, who showed last week that he's still capable of making some plays, does have Van Jefferson. He's got weapons there.
All right, the first matchup, Arizona wins 37-20. And remember, those week 4, the Rams were coming off of a huge win against the Bucs, right? It felt like this, we've arrived, we're the best team in the NFC type of moment for the Rams at the time, even though the Cardinals were also undefeated. And it was a 3-0 matchup. I predicted a tie in that game. That was my one time I predicted a tie. I was wrong. Yeah, because the Cardinals owned them, Sam. But also it was also the worst. Stafford had played well to that point, but he started missing throws in this game. He started to miss some open third downs, some key passes, and that was a big part of the game that came back to bite for the Rams. So I'm not putting it all on Stafford, but for all the offseason discussion that we had, like, this is where the edge is supposed to be, right? If you go into this game with Jared Goff as your quarterback, the line's probably steeper. Expectations are lower for the Rams. It's like, we just got to play a clean game, and this is all right. Go win it, Rams passing attack. There's a lot of pressure on Stafford here, I think, in this one.
That game was also pretty interesting because the Rams essentially did nothing in terms of rotation or different things on offense. They almost lined up with the same 11 guys every single play. They used 14 players on offense in the entire game. 7 of those snaps were Sony Michel. Deshaun Jackson had 22 when he was still part of the team, and Johnny Mund had 20. As like the only rotation involved was those 3 guys coming in for a few snaps, a handful of snaps each. Other than that, it was the exact same group of 11 guys lining up every single play, which is something that has been kind of criticism of McVay's offense in the past, that they are just too one-dimensional. They do not show you enough differences to cause defenses problems. They play this 11 personnel look, and this is what we run time after time after time. And eventually, defenses figure this stuff out. Like, the NFL, one of the key differences between the NFL and college or other areas is just how much time everybody has to study tape and work you out. And if you only show them the same things, it's not going to take defenses that long to figure out what you're doing and to be able to defend it. So I guess my point is, are the Rams going to show more to Arizona this time than they did in the first matchup?
It's ironic. That's how you used to describe the Cardinals, right?
Yeah.
Not showing enough. But look, the Cardinals offense this year, they got DeAndre Hopkins back last week, obviously got Kyler Murray back last week as well. You just see their the versatility that they have offensively with DeAndre Hopkins not necessarily being the guy that they rely on all the time. They've had games where it's A.J. Green. They've had games where it's Rondale Moore, where it's Christian Kirk, where it's the run game. They're that team this year. It was like the Niners in 2019 when they went to the Super Bowl, where the Niners had games where they relied on Jimmy G. They had games where it was the run game, right? They could win in different ways, and I do think that plays, right? I mentioned that a lot, but I think Arizona is the team that's shown it maybe as much as anybody this year. Defense has really impressed me this season.
Yeah.
Here's the other number that stood out in that first game. Aaron Donald had a 51 pass rushing grade for the Rams. I mean, he's above 70 or 80. He's above 80 in almost every other game this year, above 90 in a bunch. So he had 2 games in the 50s. One of them was this Arizona game in week 4. 39 rushes, only 2 pressures. So Arizona's generally quick passing attack did a really good job of kind of taking him out of the game. And as we've talked about with the Rams, if they are a star-driven team, if you could take one of them out, negate his pass rushing ability just by getting rid of the ball quickly, huge step. That's a huge starting point with the other star being Jalen Ramsey and then, maybe Von Miller. But that would be something else to keep an eye on. Aaron Donald, who dominates everyone, was good in the run game in this one, but from a pass rush standpoint was not nearly as effective as he usually is.
Yeah, and he's coming off the best game of his season and the best game he's had for quite a while against the Jags. He was an absolute wrecking ball for them. A ton of pressure in that game. Monster PFF pass rushing grade in particular. Had a forced fumble in the run game as well. Like, Donald had the first game for a while where you sort of remembered just how ridiculously good he is. And yeah, they need him to show up in this game.
So Kyler last week makes his return. Tough passing conditions in the Bears game. There were a couple fumbles in there for Kyler in that game.
Small hand moments.
Even though he's got 9.5-inch hands. He stretched them out for the one. He must have.
You can get away with essentially determining anybody to having
small
Brett
hands,
Favre has small hands relative to you.
Monday Night Football, this is going to be great. Where are you leaning in this game? I mentioned the Cardinals too. Like, they're not going to play outdoors the rest of the season, and they're in control for the number 1 seed. They have a chance to, control their own destiny, so to speak, and never have to leave Arizona when it comes to the playoffs.
Yeah,
where are you leaning in?
Which I think is probably important for them.
Yeah,
I've been impressed by Arizona as much as any team in the NFL this year in terms of getting through their potential setbacks. Getting through games without Kyler Murray, without DeAndre Hopkins. That defense has been overachieving, I think, but they've been overachieving for so long. I think it's pointless trying to expect it to go back down at some stage. So let's keep it going. Let's buy into Arizona.
I have to keep my Arizona bias for this week.
Hate them.
They're just, the record's 10-2, and I am extremely impressed. I think anytime Colt McCoy went out there and did a good enough job, and they moved the ball, and they had one stinker really against the Panthers with him as the quarterback. Other than that, they've continued to impress. I don't love it. I'm going to lean Rams though. I think Rams pull the upset. I'm taking more of a high-level view of, if you told me at the beginning of the season the Cardinals would be much better and the Rams would be this good, I think they'd split.
Yeah, it's not really even an upset. I mean, it's a close game, even like 2.5.
No, of course, it is. So the two things I don't want to buy into narrative stuff. The narrative stuff is, McVay's offense is always trash in the second half of the year. I'm not necessarily buying into that this week. I do think Arizona's defense has overachieved. They've been very impressive. They've overachieved just a touch. But this is going to be awesome. It's going to be a great game to watch, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm just going to lean Rams.
Definite statement game for Arizona if they manage to win it.
Oh, for sure, absolutely. And they've had other.
Yeah. It wouldn't be the first, games. But this would be a big one.
And boy, Green Bay rolled in there without any playmakers and all that stuff, and but if AJ Green just turns around for the ball, Arizona wins that game as well. Kyler Murray basically threw a game-winning touchdown that turned into a game-ending interception. And Kyler's been fantastic this season overall, especially throwing the ball to the intermediate level and all those new things that he's doing. So awesome game. I can't wait. It's going to be great. All right, got to tell you about our friends over at X-Chair. Working from home is more important than ever now. You can optimize your home office with an X-Chair and our many accessories to enhance your focus, productivity, energy, and comfort. Once you feel the customized support of X-Chair's patented dynamic variable lumbar, there's no going back. That's the DVL. That's where they have the LMX massage and temperature regulation, exclusively designed and made for the X-Chair. Versatile comfort, extraordinary design. X-Chair fits any space. I love it. High performance, quality engineering, extreme comfort, and of course, the massage and heating and cooling. That's why I love my X-Chair, and love to get to work every single morning at home in my home office with the X-Chair. So go to XChairNFLPod.com now. That's the letter X, chair, NFLPod, NFLPOD.com, or call 1-844-4XChair for $100 off your order. X-Chair has a 30-day guarantee of complete comfort, and you can finance your purchase for as little as $30 a month. It's XChairNFLPod.com. If you're watching on YouTube, check out the link in the description.
Mm-hmm.
This is another great gift idea.
Stupidly comfortable X-Chairs, unlike these stools that we're perched on here.
I've got my kids trying to sit in it all the time. They're like, "Oh, Daddy, I love your new chair." I'm like, no, son.
Out.
This is mine.
Get out.
This is my chair.
Yeah.
All sorts of different styles and all that stuff to customize as well. So go check it out, XChairNFLPod.com. There was probably 3 other games, I think, in the running for game of the week. I went with Baltimore Ravens at the Cleveland Browns.
Okay.
Just because it was so ugly a couple weeks ago. It's got to be better in this one, right? It was just one of the most disgusting games of the season. And it wasn't even a weather game. It was just Lamar and Baker just couldn't complete passes, and Lamar tried to only complete passes to the Browns, and it was just horrible. But it's awesome. It's a great, hard-nosed AFC Central matchup. That's what it is.
Yeah.
What are you looking for in this game?
Do the Browns continue? Yeah. Do the Browns continue the game plan that everybody else has been running against Lamar Jackson lately, which is just blitz the hell out of him?
Is this? So we talk about this a lot, right? Here's this blueprint, so to speak, for how teams have slowed this opposing offense, and we always ask the question: will this defense do it? Historically, in the NFL, though, there are so many defenses that just don't. We do what we do.
Yeah.
Is this going to be a new trend in the NFL where every team needs to be more malleable for these week-to-week type of game plans? I'm not trying to take you off the rails here, but we hear this come up a lot.
I mean, I think
will teams have to do that?
I don't know if they'll have to, but I think what it does is highlight real issues if your system can't adapt like this. So if you look at whatever about determining that you are better off sticking with what you do than adopting a specific blueprint for a specific offense. But if you're looking at this and, you know, your Monday meeting for game prep for the next team is, look, this is the way to beat them. This is absolutely what we should be doing. We just don't think we have the personnel to do that. Now I think you have a real problem. Like that, I think, speaks to a bad methodology of building a defense. That if you're completely unable to adapt a different game plan for the next opposition, I think you have some problems. So anything short of that, I think you're okay. But Lamar Jackson is now the single worst graded quarterback in the NFL against the blitz. Sorry, that's last week. He was the single worst, but they've been blitzing the hell out of him all season.
It's been, the Dolphins game was
one of the worst, not dead last, but he ranks amongst the worst quarterbacks in the NFL against the blitz this year. Obviously, Miami took that to extremes,
right,
by blitzing basically every snap, and not just blitzing one guy, but blitzing multiple, essentially both safeties every single play, and they were kind of hemming him in the pocket. Other teams, though, have just been blitzing him, quote unquote, normally, just sending extra guys, and it's been working. Like Lamar, the only people worse than him against the blitz this year are essentially all of the rookie terrible quarterbacks. So Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Mike White with the Jets as well, Mike Glennon, didn't work, Davis Mills, and then Lamar.
The thing about handling the blitz is it's not just a quarterback thing, though. It is a scheme thing. I mean, obviously it's football and everything's connected, but it's tough to always compare everything to the Breezes and Bradys and Rodgers and Mannings of the world. But if you watch the best quarterbacks in the world year after year, and you're like, oh, we would never blitz those guys, and why is that? They always seem to have an open receiver, and they know which one to throw to. So, I mean, half the battle is blitz recognition, knowing where to go, but the other half is having a scheme that is giving you answers. And then there's a difference in blitzes. When you get that zero blitz that they've attached with Lamar with a bunch, it's different. You're not always finding an underneath route. You're generally throwing the ball down the field. If it's a 5-man blitz with zone, fire zone, you're just trying to find these underneath receivers. My point is the Ravens also need to, as a whole, Greg Roman, needs to find answers. As much as we want to talk about Sean McVay and this, big second half adjustment, and the league knows how to attack him. What's Greg Roman going to do in Baltimore? How are they going to have answers for the blitz? Because it's got to be a whole scheme thing. The other way to beat blitz and the pressure in general, is, again, receivers getting open, right? And Baltimore, on paper, should be more equipped than they ever have to have open guys who get open quickly, the way Marquise Brown has emerged, and Rashad Bateman and Sammy Watkins and all the guys that they've had this year. It's the best receiving core that Lamar has had. And I think it's a really pivotal point for the Ravens here. These last few weeks of the season, how are they going to adjust to the way the NFL has attacked them? I mean, that's the name of the game in the NFL, right? We've got this parity season of NFL. It's really going to come down to which teams hide their weaknesses best, isn't it?
Yeah, this year appears to be slightly strange to me in terms of I think you hear a lot of the times that, hey, there's a narrative to beating this team, or there's a blueprint to beating this team, and usually it's crap. Like usually it's just there's a specific team that matches up very well. Like, that isn't a blueprint. That's just being better in certain areas. But this year, I think there are legitimate blueprints to beating several of the top contenders, certainly in the AFC. There is an actual blueprint to causing Kansas City's offense problems. There is an actual blueprint to causing Buffalo's offense problems. It's actually the same. There is an actual blueprint to causing Lamar Jackson problems. Like, all of a sudden, there are these set ways of defending these guys that weren't in the past. Lamar Jackson isn't just one of the worst graded quarterbacks against the blitz. He's also seen more blitz snaps than anybody else in the NFL. Like, it is definitely something teams are looking at and saying, this is the way we attack this guy.
Right.
And okay, there are teams that are better equipped to do it. Like, Miami was perfectly content to play zero blitz every time because they just dumped a ton of money into their cornerbacks. So Miami, more than most teams in the league, is perfectly prepared to throw those guys on an island and say, earn your money today because you're not going to have any safety help. Other teams are not going to be so willing to do that, but it is still the best way of attacking Lamar Jackson.
But the Browns, they have the great Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. So you can do anything with him. I mean, if you want him to blitz.
And the Browns are another team that have dumped a lot of resources into that secondary.
They have. They are more of a zone-heavy type of team. Not that you can't play zone with the blitz, but it's not necessarily going to look the way it did with Miami a few weeks back. JOK, again, one of my favorite players to watch in the NFL, but he was awesome in that game the other night, or a couple weeks ago against the Ravens. Tackling Lamar in the open field, tracking him down, using that speed. Again, I half joked that they drafted him for those types of games. We're going to see more of that, whether it is as a blitzer or as a spy. So I think he's another guy to keep an eye on. The Dolphins blitz more than everybody, so they might not be the best standard here. Where do the Browns rank? 26th in blitz rate. So again, it's one of those. You're asking your team to come slightly out of your comfort zone. They did it at times against the Ravens. Slightly out of your comfort zone, but to attack a weakness rather than to play to your strength. So that'll be the schematic game that we're looking at here. On the other side, the Ravens not having Marlon Humphrey. We mentioned that on the PFF NFL Daily the other day. At what point is the secondary just so beat up that it is problematic for this Ravens team that does want to also blitz and play a lot of man coverage behind them?
The Browns blitzed Lamar 26% of the time the last time they met. But they didn't need to.
The other thing is it worked. I mean, so Lamar said he was rusty. He was coming off of illness and this. He didn't have a feel for his passes. They weren't getting to where. I mean, he had 4 turnover-worthy plays and 3 interceptions, right? Or
the other way around.
Three turnover-worthy plays, 4 actual interceptions. I think from a Browns perspective, you're not expecting that, but we said it last week. Lamar's had multiple turnover-worthy plays in most of his games this year.
They didn't need to do anything. When they didn't blitz him and when they kept him clean, he threw 3 turnover-worthy plays and 4 picks. They just
Right.
left him alone in the pocket and said, do what you do, and Lamar was airmailing the ball straight to defenders. So it'd be interesting to see if Lamar looks better this week. Do they dial it up and try and get him out of that comfort?
Yeah, so that matchup will be great. And now Browns are coming off the bye. And yes. Andrew Berry, did we talk about this on the podcast? But he had some father-like words to say about Baker Mayfield. I expect, it's kind of like a stern father saying, these are my expectations, son. These are my expectations for these next 5 weeks. I expect good football out of you. And I felt like this is a big test here. This is a big test for Baker Mayfield. He said Baker's healthy enough to play football. Mm-hmm. He's healthy enough to help us win games. He's our best option to win games, and we expect he'll play his best football in December and January down the stretch. I'm paraphrasing, of course. So what's going to happen these last few weeks? Is Baker going to earn that contract, or the Browns going to walk? Are they just going to offer him half what he wants? This is the storyline just continues to get better.
I mean, Baker's contract number is going down on a weekly basis. The worse he plays, the less money he's going to earn. I don't know what that contract can possibly look like at this point. It feels like the longer his bad play continues, the more they have to be destined for some kind of separation or not even separate. Like, maybe he gets the Kirk Cousins treatment, right, where he just starts operating on a series of 1 year, the 5th-year option, then the franchise tag, then bye-bye. But they can't give him a Josh Allen kind of contract, off the back of this. It would be ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's fine. I think this could work for Baker, though, too. If he grits it out and actually performs well and, has one of those gritty wins against a Ravens team and all that stuff, could work for him, potentially.
I mean, it could, but when was the last time he played well was against Cincinnati in Week 9. Then he's at 3.
And he was just fresh off the high of OBJ being out of the building.
Yeah, exactly. Then he had 3 pretty terrible games back to back.
Now, since that point, you know what the analysis is? Boy, Cleveland could really use a number 1 wide receiver.
Yeah.
Which is also true. Both things can be true. They didn't have a number 1 wide receiver in OBJ. He wasn't. He wasn't playing like that. But now this offense could use better receiving weapons. That's another factor in this, Sam, right? If Baker wasn't hurt, wouldn't we be looking at this situation like we've looked at other quarterback situations and said, yeah, the offensive line's fine, but who's he throwing to?
Yeah.
Just a decent possession receiver in Jarvis Landry, the tight ends.
There's enough there, but you would say, yeah, this is a team crying out for a number 1 option. He's had multiple turnover-worthy plays in each of those last 3 games now. He had 3 turnover-worthy plays against the Patriots, which was a turnover-worthy play rate of 12.5%.
Because they didn't throw a ton. Well, even the Lions game, so
ridiculous.
Those are the more concerning things. I know the Lions are fresh off their win, and they've played some teams tough in recent weeks. But you kind of want to see more efficiency against the lesser teams.
Yes.
We haven't even seen that from Baker Mayfield.
Right. 176 yards against the Detroit Lions is pretty inexcusable.
Is weather going to be a factor in this? Anybody want to look up the weather report and drop it in the YouTube chat here?
Anybody want to look you?
Because it's at Cleveland, and it's in December. But these are the games that you got to win. Cleveland is favored. By the way, all this said, Cleveland's favored by 2.5. And I know, when you're within 3 points, it's not saying a ton, but are you surprised that Cleveland's favored here? Against the 8-4 Baltimore Ravens.
Right, and they're both actually in very similar positions in the PFF power rankings. They're separated by 1 spot, 12 and 13. But what's critical is that Baltimore obviously has a much better standing in terms of playoffs and all those kinds of things. They are 73% to win that division, 47% to win the division, 73% to make the playoffs. The Browns are only a 16% chance to win the division and a 28% chance to make the playoffs. So this is a must-win game for them. If they don't win this game, they're pretty much boned.
I got word from Beckett, working behind the scenes over here at PFF. 45 and sunny for this game. I'm disappointed.
Perfect.
I don't want that.
You don't want nice weather?
No, I want flurries.
That's perfect football weather.
I want 26 degrees, snow flurries. No accumulation, just flurries. The
last game they played took me out of any desire for bad weather for them. Let's just have a nice, perfect game, and let's hope to get some good football from Lamar and Baker.
All right. Well, hoping for a good one. It's a great. This is going to be a good game. I'm excited for a lot of the games this week. Cleveland by 2.5. Where are you leaning here?
I think you have to lean Baltimore, given what we've seen from the Browns lately.
Really?
Baker Mayfield. Yeah.
Baltimore getting points here is what I'm leaning that way too. I thought you might go the other way.
I can't think that Lamar is going to play this badly for this long.
That's kind of my take too.
He's kind of dropped off the face of the earth in terms of grading. His grade has gone from up in the 80s to the 60s, the 50s, the 40s. There's no reason for it.
Do some splits here. What are his? Where's he ranking over these last few weeks?
I understand that teams are blitzing him more, and that's part of the issue. But it's not like Lamar has never seen the blitz before.
Let's do a little since week 9.
Since week 9.
And by the way, week 9 was when, not that fans ever criticize us, but, he had 3 touchdowns against Minnesota, and he's the MVP and all this stuff. Actually, he didn't play that great of a game. Since week 9, which was that game, Lamar is 41st out of these qualifiers. He's 41 out of 42 if you include Mike Glennon, who has 1 start. So
as a passing
last.
Grade, he's 42 out of 42. He is dead
40th.
last.
40.6 passing grade.
Yeah.
I was looking at it the other day, too. In 2019, 3 of the top 5 quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, all ranking in the 20s this year.
By the way, in the same time period, Baker Mayfield is 36th in passing grade and 38.
Oh, gosh, yeah. He's got a 52. So Baker's really outgrading Lamar. Let's do this. Since week 9, Russell Wilson with a 52 grade, Baker Mayfield 52, Lamar Jackson 45.
Yes. Since week 9, they are 2 of the 5 worst quarterbacks in the NFL.
The best quarterbacks are Tom Brady's highest graded, then Justin Fields, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Tua.
Exactly.
Look at
Taylor
Jimmy and
Heineke.
Tua right next to each
Taylor
other.
Heineke and Josh Johnson, exactly the way we always thought.
Oh, man. Small sample size splits are fun. So we're both leaning Baltimore here, in part because Lamar's probably not going to play at a 45 level like he has over the last 4 weeks.
You would think.
I would think. That's why I'm saying that.
Yeah.
Let's take Baltimore on this one. I'm going to take DraftKings as well. As football fans, I'm sure you would love an action-packed, high-scoring NFL game, unlike that Ravens-Cleveland game the first time around. But with the latest no-brainer from DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, you'll be a winner once a single point is scored. New customers who bet just $1 on any team to score can win $100 in free bets. It's that simple. If Sportsbook isn't yet available in your state, you can still get in on the NFL action. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes all season long with DraftKings daily fantasy sports contests. And DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PFF. Bet $1 on any team to score and win $100 in free bets. If they score, you score with promo code PFF this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, Pennsylvania. Only new customers only. Minimum $5 deposit, $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Was that English? Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. We started through some words.
Sure.
Like my 2-year-old. He's trying to put a lot of words together, and like the first few you get, and at some point it's just gibberish. Much like my terms and conditions right there. Anyway, go to DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Use the promo code PFF. Coming to town this week, the San Francisco 49ers. We should meet up with Kyle.
Yeah.
Oh, what about Bobby? I'm going to text Bobby right now. Let's go grab dinner on Saturday, Bobby. The Niners are favored by 1.5 here against the Bengals.
Yeah. This is fun. So Deebo Samuel was the guy that the entire offense was running through. He looked incredible, was lining up in the backfield as much as he was in the slot for his last couple of games. And then Deebo goes down, groin strain, misses the game last week. So they just pivot to George Kittle. It's like, oh, remember George Kittle? He actually turns out he's freaking amazing.
Unstoppable
Still.
Kittle.
Right. 100+ yards after the catch, 76 yards after contact after the catch. The dude just monstered the defense and was a big reason that San Francisco was in position to try and win that game late. So now the Deebo thing is up in the air. We don't know if he's going to play or not. But it honestly doesn't matter. I'm just so fascinated by these unique playmakers that the 49ers have on offense that even regardless of what Shanahan's doing with the scheme or Jimmy Garoppolo, the guy steering the ship, just the fact that they can put guys like Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Kyle Juszczyk, Brandon Ayuk out there, they are so entertaining to watch because each one of those guys is a rare / unique skill set that nobody else can match up with. And, okay, they might not have the sort of perfect puzzle when they're all healthy in terms of how to share it all around, how to make sure each guy is having a huge impact. But in any given game, one of those guys is going to be doing something pretty special.
Yeah, I mean, they've been fantastic, and they've been one of those teams that, you know, if you described this early in the season, you would say this is what they'll look like, right? And then as we just mentioned, in the small sample size of Jimmy Garoppolo playing really well in recent weeks, he started off really slow enough that this is funny, right? I mean, if you look back after the Indy River Rain game, and they asked Kyle, "Is Jimmy G your quarterback?" Mm-hmm. What was it? Quote, "I suppose."
Yeah.
Since I suppose. This is like the Aaron Rodgers, you know, after like the run the table. We're going to run the table. Since I suppose Jimmy G has graded in the green every single time if you're using PFF premium stats. And if you want to go get your Edge or Elite package, you get 25% off using promo code NFL Pod. You can do that. But I'm just looking at Jimmy G's player page here. And since week 8 at Chicago, that was when this offense really broke out. He has been really good since the Trey Lance hype really started. So Garoppolo playing at a similar level as he did in 2019 when they went to the Super Bowl. So this is a big part of why the 49ers are dangerous. Of course, looking back now, last week's a very disappointing loss against that Seattle team. They had a chance to win. Garoppolo couldn't lead that fourth quarter comeback, but Niners offense certainly trending in the right direction these last few weeks.
Yeah, maybe all he needed was a kick up the ass. Just get out there and play better. You're not playing well right now.
Just be better.
And even last week, he got them right down to the goal line. And if that pass wasn't batted, the last pass that determined the game,
True.
It was going to hit the guy for a touchdown, I'm pretty sure. So, okay, he didn't get it done, but he was right there on the edge of it. Now, look, that was a weird game because he had a couple of terrible decisions in that game. But 10 yards per attempt, and as we say, it was right there. It was one batted pass away from snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. And you're right, the broader point being, this is now 6 straight games where he's had good PFF grades, as opposed to, in the first 5 weeks of the season, he had 1, and it was week 1. He had a week 1 where he was pretty good, and then 4 straight games of mediocrity at best. Then, bam, all of a sudden you get good Jimmy G. And good Jimmy G is good enough for this team to be a Super Bowl type of team. Okay, their defense isn't as good as it was during their Super Bowl year, but with all those playmakers we talked about on offense and with a good offensive line, with Trent Williams just sending people into the next world in the run game, this is an offense that becomes really formidable for any defense.
Now, on the other side, a lot of the talk of the town here in Cincinnati is about Joe Burrow's interceptions. He's got 14 interceptions, and the people think this could be a problem. What's happening? He's leading the league in interceptions. We sat here talking about Lamar's got to take better care of the ball. What's he doing? Well, Burrow's got more interceptions than Lamar Jackson. But I'm here to tell you, Bengals fans, don't worry. Joe Burrow has the same exact turnover-worthy play rate as last season. 3.1% this year. It's actually slightly better than last season, where he was at 3.2%.
Also the same as Matthew Stafford.
But it's in the same exact range. Last year he had, Burrow, 15 turnover-worthy plays and 5 interceptions. This year he's got 14 turnover-worthy plays and 14 interceptions. Now, that doesn't mean that every turnover-worthy play became an interception. That means if it's a 1-to-1 ratio, it means clearly that interception total is higher than it should be.
He has a marginally higher turnover-worthy play rate than Aaron Rodgers, who has 4 interceptions on the season.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers having really good interception luck so far this season. He's thrown the ball into harm's way a bunch. That hasn't showed up on the stat sheet.
I mean, you only have to look last week, right? Joe Burrow drops an absolute dime literally into the hands of Jamar Chase, and somehow that ball ends up over here to a cornerback who was trailing in his wake by a couple of yards.
So, yes, I would just say I'm not terribly worried about that. I think Burrow's playing good football. I would say
Very
there
good
is
football.
The place where I would be slightly concerned is Burrow, when there's pressure, does take a high percentage of sacks. That is one of the numbers I like to defer to. Burrow's taken a ton of sacks, and we know, and it's a high percentage of pressured snaps that become sacks. And I do wonder how much of that is just self-preservation. There's definitely a lot of plays this year where Burrow's just like, yeah, I'll get tackled, just to live to play another day. I don't want to get hurt again. I'm just saying that's where there are negative plays here in this Bengals offense. 6 sacks last week against the Chargers.
I actually think almost the opposite, that Burrow, it's not self-preservation. He doesn't have this self-preservation thing. He's almost Wentzian in terms of dude, just the play's done. Get the hell down.
There have been plays like that for sure.
There are way too many plays every week where Burrow is sort of not the architect of his own problems, because the offensive line, I think, is primarily at fault, but needs to recognize earlier when the play is inevitably ending in him getting hit, and just get rid of it or hit the dirt, or literally be better at self-preservation, because you're a guy who's coming off a pretty devastating knee injury, and there's a few hits this season that he's taken where you're like, oh, come on. You are too important to be taking that kind of hit.
Maybe I'm just thinking early in the season there were times he was he got sacked 10 times in those first 2 weeks, and there was, he has had too many of those plays where he is trying to play hero ball. So that's where I think the Bengals can be a little bit more efficient, is avoiding those negative plays, have the interception luck kind of revert back a little bit, and they'll be okay. But figuring out the Bengals week to week here is challenging, to say the least.
They've almost gone how Jamar Chase has gone this season. Earlier in the year, they were on fire. Jamar Chase was turning everything into gold, regardless of where the pass was thrown. He was mossing guys at the catch point, or he was taking a pass and then breaking 3 tackles and turning it into something special, or the ball looked like it was going to end up in the arms of the safety, but Savage misses it, and then boom, touchdown. And then the bad games where Cincinnati has been just wrecked by people, It's games where all of a sudden every pass intended for Jamar Chase ends up in something bad. He drops it, or he fumbles it away, or he somehow drops it into an interception, or like weird things on the other end of variance. If you just plotted like a mid-course of not every pass intended for him goes for a touchdown, and not every pass ends up intercepted or fumbled away either. If you just plotted some kind of middle ground, the Bengals would be a much more normal team, I think.
Yeah, I mean, look, Chase is still leading all rookies with 958 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns. But yeah, there has been inconsistency there. And a couple weeks ago, we said, if you could just get T. Higgins involved more and, expand the offense with Chase playing at this level, you'd be great. But again, if you do the splits thing, over the last few weeks, Chase has not been great, to your point. So Bengals have to find a way to get all of it working at the same time. I think this week, they get it going this week. Niners at Cincinnati. Bengals are getting points. Give me the home underdog. The better quarterback getting points at home here, Sam. That's where I'm leaning. A George Charuri favorite. Better quarterback getting the points. And nice rematch. A little Montana Boomer rematch here. Revenge game for the Bengals.
A rematch.
Yeah, and 82.
From the 80s.
Dave Lapham revenge game.
Yes.
Dave Lapham is going to be he is going to be more fired up for this game than any other game, maybe in history. The Niners who beat the Bengals in the Super Bowl twice in the 80s. Give me the Bengals revenge game.
Okay.
Chris, this one's for Chris. It's for Dave Lapham. It's for all of them.
This one's for Chris. Yeah, I mean, I think I would lean with the Bengals as well. But I do think it's going to be interesting to see how they defend whatever offense the 49ers deploy, which I think will depend on whether Deebo Samuel is going to go or not.
Who are you going with?
Cincy.
Sorry. You're taking Cincy too? Are we the same on a bunch?
Who knows?
All right. What's next here? Dallas at Washington. This is another good game. This could have been a game of the week. Cowboys favored by 4 against the Washington football team on the road. This begins the NFC East. I mean, it's just NFC East every single weekend, nonstop. It's Washington, right, that only has NFC East games left? Or is it Philadelphia?
Possibly.
Anyway, Washington, first time these two teams have played. They'll play a couple times now in these last few weeks. What are you looking for in this game? Dallas favored by 4 against a hot Washington football team.
Washington do only have NFC East teams.
Right.
They're Dallas, Philly, New York.
Ridiculous schedule.
It is kind of silly.
They play 2 teams in 2 out of 3 weeks over the next 4 weeks. How's that?
I mean, yeah, I get it, but it does kind of, I don't know, it doesn't sit quite right. Like, I understand that the division games at the end of the year are kind of the most important ones, and
not
therefore,
like this though.
Right, but when you just stack them all up at the end, it's like, I mean, can we see something else? Taylor Heineke, I'm sort of fascinated by his little resurgence as well. It hasn't quite been, Jimmy Garoppolo. We haven't been very good, good to very good in every consecutive week, but he finally had like a really good game against Carolina, and generally either side of that has been, pretty good, much better than he has been earlier in the season. It's actually the Taylor Heineke thing, which I thought was going to be a mirror of Ryan Fitzpatrick in terms of wild roller coaster rides, incredible highs like we saw in the playoff game against Tampa Bay, ridiculous lows like we saw earlier in the season against Buffalo, and just lurching from one to the next. It actually hasn't been. It's been way more consistent than that. And, he has made a reasonably consistent number of turnover-worthy plays. They've come inconsistently in games. They've come in bunches, but that's been his biggest flaw. And then the real issue is like just the down-to-down consistency has been more or less where you'd expect it to be. It hasn't lurched from, oh, wow, Taylor Heineke isn't going to miss in this game. It's going to look like good Fitzpatrick. We haven't really seen that outside of like one game. But the fact that he is trending up means Washington goes from getting blown out by a bunch of teams to being competitive against more or less anybody.
Yeah, the thing that has really stood out to me about the football team that I've mentioned too is just how they've been able to just sap clock, and not that you're trying to win time of possession and all that stuff, but the football team has really done a good job of shortening games, in part because their defense is so much better now than it was earlier in the year. But Heineke has graded well, as since week 9, because I had that filter on, top 5 since week 9. And what has that looked like? It really has been, hey, it's 3rd and 6, here's 7 yards, right? I mean, it has been a whole bunch of hitting an out route along the sideline to just keep the chains moving, hitting the slot out route. I mean, hitting Terry McLaurin, throwing a jump ball to Terry McLaurin every now and again, letting him go up and make a play. They have done just enough to move the chains. And that's probably the strategy you want here in this Dallas game. How much can you sap the clock, keep this explosive Dallas offense off the field, don't let them score as many points, make it into a game like a 17-15 game against the Raiders, right? I mean, that's what you're trying to play here if you're the Washington football team, and they've done a really nice job of that in recent weeks. Pass rush has been really good. Even without Montez Sweat, even without Chase Young, they're still getting after quarterbacks. So, yeah, Washington, they're a tricky team. And, division, and they're trending and all that stuff. I think Dallas is better, though, is the bottom line. I mean, they're better. They're going to play tighter man coverage and make Heineke continue to make those tight window throws, I believe. So I like Dallas in this one. But I think this is another potentially really good game here with the way the football team's playing. But they're just playing with this tighter margin of error where the run game has to keep them on course to shorten the game. And I don't know if they could do it every single week in Washington.
My Super Bowl prediction is still alive.
Oh, so now this is – what did you do in the sim here?
The sim has Washington making the playoffs.
Well, what did you do with this game?
Oh, what I do with this game? I think, I don't remember what I did originally, but I was curious if Washington would still make it if they lost to Dallas both games. So in the sim, they are losing both games to Dallas.
They're going to lose both games.
And still making the playoffs.
Are they going to cover?
What's the line? 3 something? 4. No. Dallas wins and covers.
I agree. Dallas wins and covers. So all that said, I think
a big part of that is emotionally hedging, Dallas wins and covers, I get it right. Therefore, good. If they don't,
better quarterback on the road, though. I mean, better quarterback getting points, though. Taylor Heineke.
If Washington wins, then my Super Bowl dream is still alive.
Dak's throwing the ball pretty well. I mean, he hurt his grade on Thursday Night Football. He was playing pretty well with some big time throws, but Thursday Night Football, late interception that kind of keep the Saints in the game. Almost blew it late. But overall, Dak having a really good season. 85 passing grade. That's his best season. 8 big time throws over these last couple weeks. So I'm expecting it to be Dak chucks it around and has some success type of game. I will take Dallas to cover.
Washington has a 55% chance of making the playoffs according to the PFF power rankings. My simulation agrees. The fact that they're able to lose to Dallas twice and still make it is pretty important for them because the NFC East, the whole sort of wrapped up end of the season is going to be weird. There's going to be some games that go one way that shouldn't. Maybe they split the series with Dallas, and then maybe they can drop one to Philadelphia or whatever. But it is interesting for Washington that despite this sort of disappointment of a season, all of a sudden they are on the cusp of the playoffs.
I mean, if Washington sweeps Dallas, that puts them even basically.
Yeah.
And then you don't know what happens in the other because Dallas has a 2-game lead. If Washington could pull it off, could sweep them, all of a sudden it's like even division and see what happens in those last 3 games with Washington with the tiebreaker. So huge game here in the glorious NFC East. They're not as bad as they were last year. Las Vegas Raiders at the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs favored by 9.5. The Chiefs team that cannot move the ball. They can't do anything offensively. Once again, favored by almost double digits.
It was like Denver last week.
Yeah.
It's like a 9-point game. You're like, Kansas City might not score enough to cover a 9-point spread. But Denver didn't score last week, essentially.
So the Chiefs, let's go through their – ready? Chiefs points scored since since week 7. 3 points against the Titans, 20 against the Giants, 13 against the Packers, 41 against the Raiders, 19 against the Cowboys, 22 against the Broncos. Anything stand out in that list?
Yes. The Raiders, the team that looked at the blueprint to defeating Kansas City and said, nah, not for me. We're going to roll with what we roll with and see how that works. It didn't work so well.
It did not. So there's, once again, will the Raiders schematically change things. To the other point, though, as you mentioned in the Denver game, did Denver even do that a whole lot? Is it really just Kansas City's got some issues and they just, in a dome against the Raiders?
Well, Denver, I think, didn't necessarily need to do it because they're very good at taking away the deep ball anyway.
Yeah.
So they could afford to live. And they did do it a bit, right? They pivoted more towards too high stuff than they have done this season. So it's not like they just ignored it completely. They did shift in that direction, but we're still able to lean on the fact that they are good at discouraging the deep ball regardless. The Raiders aren't. So the Raiders looked at that and said, no, we are not going to go with that game plan. We're going to run our defense and see how that holds up. Well, it didn't hold up well. Now, going into that game, you can at least excuse them. It was an open question, right? We hadn't really seen, everybody was running that type of defense against Kansas City. We hadn't really seen what happens when a team just ignores that and does something different. So you can kind of understand how they would make that decision to begin with, to say, look, it's a risk to completely change our defense. We don't know. Well, let's just stick with what we know best. Better the devil you know type of thing, right? Yeah. Okay, I can understand that. Evidently, it was the wrong call. They got wrecked because of it. They're the only team in whatever that is, 6 weeks, that Kansas City has had joy against. So if they do it again, that's just negligent. Like, that's just bad coaching. There's no way. You are definitely better at this point going with the devil you don't know and assuming that can't be worse than the one you know, which was destroyed last time. So if the Raiders roll into this game again and haven't changed, that's just terrible.
It's also one of those games when you're previewing it, we would say something like, oh, Max Crosby needs to have a huge game. We got to get pressure on Patrick Mahomes. Well, in the first matchup, Andrew Wiley filled in at right tackle for the Chiefs, got whooped. Max Crosby had 13 pressures. Now, no sacks. Only hit Mahomes twice. 11 pressures in there. Wiley did not have a great game. Trey Smith didn't have a great game from a pass rushing standpoint. They got a decent amount of pressure on Patrick Mahomes, but they didn't do anything with it, so to speak, right? You got to actually get him to the ground once or twice, force some errant throws, or going back to like the Lamar factor, if you're going to pressure or blitz, you want to take away those escape routes. We've seen the Raiders do that in a different system. Last year, they did a really nice job of that, but I think that's going to be another key. Like if Max Crosby gets another 8 or 9 pressures in this game, 1 or 2 of them needs to be a sack, or a couple times it's got to force him into someone else, or just force some errant throws here from Mahomes if the Raiders are going to have success.
The flip side to those numbers on offense, by the way, is look at the points conceded by the Chiefs in the last run of games.
Yeah, go through it.
So 13 against Washington. Okay, 27 against Tennessee. That's not great. Then 17 against the Giants, 7 against the Aaron Rodgers-less Packers, 14 against the Raiders, 9 against Dallas, 9 against Denver. The Kansas City defense has all of a sudden become one of the best defenses in the NFL.
In history.
You're right. They've honestly almost gone from being literally the worst defense in the NFL to being the best in the flip of a switch randomly midway through the season. It's insane what the defense has done.
It reminds me a little bit. I mean, I don't know if you say 2017 or it's 4 years ago, are we dating ourselves too much? But the New England Patriots that year, remember, they just got Stephon Gilmore, and their first 4 or 5 weeks were getting absolutely torched. Gilmore, they had blown coverages left and right, and we had this stat, like the Patriots blew coverages, 15 times or something in 5 weeks, and then after that it was like 2, right? A lot of the Chiefs' issues at the beginning of the season was just blown coverage. Now they got wrecked up front, and they weren't getting off blocks. All that stuff was true too, but they were giving up 70-yard touchdowns with guys just running behind the defense. They have eliminated just the disastrous mistakes. Now on top of that, you've got the Melvin Ingram factor and Chris Jones, coming back, and just everybody, the pieces fitting better in Kansas City. But at a high level, just the fact that they're in position, instead of blown coverages like they did like once or twice, 3 times a game earlier in the season has been huge for the Chiefs. But yeah, they're playing some really good football on that side of the ball. And, it'll be interesting to see if they can sustain this defensively, because it's not always this clean start-to-finish path on your way to a Super Bowl, right?
They're such a fascinating team now because they are now back at the top of PFF's power rankings. They are 91% chance to make the playoffs, 70% chance to win the division. They're all of a sudden legitimately one of the favorites again, and yet you look at they're not right. Like, this isn't what we thought the Chiefs would be. They are still struggling on offense. But then you look at the run-in, and okay, it's not the easiest run-in in the world, but none of those teams are going to scare them the way they might if their defense hadn't turned things around. So the Raiders this week, obviously, at the Chargers, then the Steelers, at Cincinnati, at Denver. They could win all those games. Now, they could lose any one of them, but they could win all of those games, be running into the playoffs on the back of like a 10-game win streak without an offense that's working the way we usually expect it to work, with Mahomes grading in the 20s amongst quarterbacks, but with their defense looking like the best defense in the NFL and holding up the entire thing. Like, it's bizarre.
Yeah, this is, if you had a time machine and said back in August, although we predicted it in the preseason. No, but if you said back in August, the Chiefs' defense would start carrying them and Mahomes would look pedestrian and all that stuff.
If you said Mahomes was the 24th graded quarterback in the NFL, but the Chiefs' defense is top 5, so they're still rolling into the playoffs, people would look at you like you're insane.
Crazy. It would be crazy. On the other side, I just, not to oversimplify things for Derek Carr, but I have oversimplified things for Derek Carr in general. When he's aggressive, generally good things happen. Even last week in the Washington game, threw the ball down the field a little bit more, graded better. It didn't show up on the scoreboard, but the Raiders have to try to create chunk plays in this game. That even though you're not going, it might not be a shootout situation like previous Chiefs teams. You have to be aggressive here if you're the Raiders against this Chiefs defense and see if you can create some plays in the passing game down the field.
I think the thing we've learned from the Raiders is that they need all of their playmakers on offense healthy for that thing to be working. They need Darren Waller and Deshaun Jackson, obviously Derek Carr. Like, they need multiple ways of winning, and if they only have one of those guys or if one of them is missing, it doesn't look the same. If they don't have Deshaun Jackson's deep threat, the defense is too easy for defenses to clamp down on it. If they don't have Darren Waller, as much as Deshaun Jackson is manipulating defenses, there's nobody there to take advantage of it. They need all of those players in that offense for them to function. If they don't, the thing falls off a cliff quickly.
Darren Waller is officially questionable in this game. He's been battling injury, so obviously it would be huge to have him a part of the game here. 9.5 points, Sam. Where are you leaning in this one?
Kansas City.
I don't want to do the same. I got to lean. I'm disappointed in how Vegas handled the last game. I think they'll at least keep it a little bit closer. 14-10. Another classic Chiefs win here.
14-10.
14-10. Can we get a weather report in Kansas City? Maybe there'll be a weather game here to tighten it up a little bit. I'll take Vegas to at least cover here. But, yeah, I mean, the ball's in the Chiefs' court here as far as the division and maybe even getting back on top for that number 1 seed in the AFC. Those are all good games, by the way. We've covered 6 games. They're all legit division games, playoff implications, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. There are some lesser games this week as well. Chicago Bears at the Green Bay Packers. Packers favored by 12.5. But on Sunday Night Football, we do have the return of Justin Fields. So we at least have something to completely overreact to here in primetime.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, Fields is fun to watch. He has an incredible ability to make plays that Andy Dalton doesn't have. You know, Justin Fields still has one of the best big-time throw rates in the NFL. Okay, it's a way smaller sample size than everybody else, but right now it's Kyler Murray, Jameis, Derek Carr, and Justin Fields. That's the top of the big-time throw rate. Now, okay, he's got a pretty high rate of turnover-worthy plays as well, and a bunch of plays where they haven't been turnover-worthy, but they're negatives, right? Taking sacks, just blowing protections, causing like those kinds of things. So it is a roller coaster ride watching Justin Fields, but he gives you an upside that simply does not exist with Kyler Murray there, or not Kyler Murray, with Andy Dalton there. Kyler Murray.
They played, the Bears last week.
That's because I just read him out as top of the big-time throw rate.
You read it, yeah, you read his name. Yeah, so, I mean, Fields' watch is always interesting. Aaron Rodgers, they had the bye week. He's got the toe injury. He decided not to have surgery because he wants to play football. Last time we saw him play, I don't think it was really an issue. I mean, I don't think he was ineffective or anything. That is the type of thing that might show up, second half of the game, or the drugs and the shots wear off a little bit. But again, Rodgers is coming off of back-to-back pretty good games throwing the football, so yeah. He's been just fine.
Yeah, Rodgers, not his best season by any stretch, but as you said, back-to-back good games. They've come against Minnesota on the road and the Rams, so those are 2 good opponents to be having 2 of your better games of the season. And, really, if you're going to strip out the couple of terrible games he's had, like week 1 against the Saints, which is just up as one of those week 1 bizarre ones, and then that week 10 game against Seattle, you strip out those 2 games, you're getting much closer to the sort of elite Aaron Rodgers than maybe the perception is this season.
Well, maybe that's the reason for concern this week.
Yeah.
Those 2 games are the he had too much rest games.
Rust games.
The rust game. He was all off season. He was just too busy. Too busy
In Hawaii.
Giving answers for people to ask questions.
Yeah, look,
Jeopardy.
you strip out those 2 games, and Aaron Rodgers is the number 1 graded quarterback in the NFL.
Oh, yeah, perfect. But when he had too much rest in week 1, and then, the COVID week off against Seattle, those were his 2 grades in the 40s. Now he's coming off a bye. See what I'm saying?
But he could practice during the bye.
Yeah, I know. He could practice in preseason
Yeah,
too.
but he didn't. He was in Hawaii.
True. He was just.
Your problem is lack of practice time. COVID,
all
he was
I'm
busy.
saying is there's evidence that when he has more than a week to prepare for a game, he's unprepared.
You were blaming the lack of practice for the rust. Like when he was COVID, he was self-isolating and doing yoga or whatever it was. He wasn't throwing balls to Alan Lazard and Devontae Adams. So all of a sudden he's rusty.
Right.
The week 1 thing, he was chilling in Hawaii and doing Jeopardy or whatever. He wasn't practicing and throwing his own teammates the ball. Now it's a bye, but they were practicing, so he should be fine.
Okay, so Aaron Rodgers will be fine.
Yeah.
One thing to keep an eye on, small sample, but I mean, it's his highest turnover-worthy play rate since 2017. He's got 7 turnover-worthy plays over the last 5 games and only 1 interception to show for it. So if the Bears are going to have a shot, and Rodgers does have, he's got like one or two of those plays per game where he kind of has been giving the defense an opportunity. The Bears need to take advantage. But it's a 12.5-point spread for a reason. It's in Green Bay. Rodgers said, "I own you, Chicago," and the whole thing. Can the Bears even use that against him? We'll see. I don't even
think they're going to be using it against him for like every game until he's no longer there. But I think he commented on it. It's like, at some point they're going to use that against me. But like, I would argue that the facts have backed me up.
He said, "Spot the lie."
Yeah, pretty much. Like, yes, okay, maybe it was an ill-advised thing to be throwing around next to a microphone. On the other hand, it's true. And until they show otherwise, I expect it to continue to be true.
So Green Bay to cover, or just Chicago keep it close enough?
What are we talking here? 12. Ooh,
it's one of those like Fields. Fields needs to play like he did in that Pittsburgh game. Monday Night Football, made the comeback, had 5 big time throws. You're gonna have to get the highest end of your rookie Justin Fields, probably to even cover against the Packers here. Jair Alexander, by the way, back to practice. Not necessarily to play the game, but he's got that window open to practice. That's huge for the Packers here.
I'll go with Chicago.
Do it.
Keeping it closer than that monster line.
Oh, no. It's going to be ugly. Sunday Night Football. Speaking of ugly, the Atlanta Falcons at the Carolina Panthers.
Speaking of ugly.
How's that?
Nice.
We mentioned earlier the Bucs, Brady sitting in a clean pocket and getting rid of the ball quickly and all that stuff. Time to throw matters in that equation. But the Falcons' pass rush, now the lowest pass rush grade in the NFL. 4 pressures on over 50 dropbacks last week against Brady. It was the lowest pressure rate in any game this season. But Carolina's offensive line this week. So, resistible object and movable, what is it? Movable object and resistible force? Is that this one?
Yes, a resistible force against a very movable object.
Yeah, there we go. Something's got to give up front here. Joe Brady out. Talked about that on the Daily. Out as the offensive coordinator in Carolina. What are you looking for in this game?
I'm kind of curious to see if now that Joe Brady is gone, if they pivot to some insane, like run-heavy, Cam Newton-led, Patriots-style offense. Not like, 3 pass attempts in the game, but Matt Rule was apparently wanting them to run the ball more.
That's a good point, yeah.
Establish the run harder. What is this passing stuff? This is not what we want to do. Do they swing all the way back in that direction? And this is like a 40 rush attempt game where Cam Newton carries the ball 15 times. The whole thing runs through Christian McCaffrey. I'm kind of curious to see, do they do something radical with that offense off the back of getting rid of a guy who's clearly being, scapegoated out of there?
Yeah, I think that'll be interesting. By the way, the Panthers are favored by 2.5 here. Atlanta's offensive line has had issues. Matt Ryan, he was sacked a bunch against Tampa Bay last week as well. Carolina still gets pressure at a pretty high rate. The last time we saw Carolina It was, I did declare it the worst offensive line performance one of the worst of our lifetime. Of our time, right? I mean, just to really hit home the impact, it was bad.
It would also be really interesting, by the way, if Carolina did run that game plan, because you would then, like in back-to-back weeks, you would have sort of seen a team looking at the same defense and coming to polar opposite conclusions about the way to attack them.
It would be fun.
Tampa Bay looks at that defense and goes, oh, we can pass all day long with zero concern. That's how we're going to beat the Falcons. And then you would have Carolina the next week looking at them and going, oh, we're going to run the ball down their throats with our run-heavy offense and our dominant ground attack quarterback, and we're not really going to put the ball in the air much at all. That would just be a really interesting dynamic back-to-back weeks.
I don't have much else on this game here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just both teams. The Panthers, are they still technically in the hunt? They're both 5-7,
still
right?
in the hunt. If there's a scenario where the Detroit Lions are still mathematically alive, both these teams are still in the hunt.
I can't wait until the Lions game where I'm going to read out the scenario.
You're going to read it out. How can you read it out? There's like 5 weeks worth of every game needs to happen.
That's what I'm going to do.
That would take up the podcast by itself.
That's going to be the Lions preview.
No.
Week 14, Lions beat the Broncos. Steelers beat the Vikings.
Stop it right now.
Okay.
The other thing to watch in this game is, I mean, anytime the Falcons are terrible, but they have Cordero Patterson and Kyle Pitts, who are two of the most entertaining players in the NFL to watch and marvel at. Patterson is just an athletic freak who makes plays wherever he's lined up. And then Kyle Pitts, they're struggling to get him the ball, but every single week you see one play where it's like, oh my God, that guy is technically a tight end. And he's taken beating up number one corner, stiff-arming them and running down the sideline. Like, this is ridiculous. So the ceiling for Kyle Pitts remains insanely high, and Cordero Patterson is one of the players of the season.
That's what I'm watching every single week for the Falcons.
That's what I'm saying.
Watch those playmakers, for sure. Where are you leaning here?
I'm going to go with Atlanta.
Give me Carolina. Atlanta can't exploit their weaknesses, I don't think. You get the no Joe Brady bump. You always get like a 1 week bump when you fire a coach, even a coordinator. Like a 1 week bump. A little motivated. Yeah, Joe's out of the building, finally. Not that they care.
Okay.
I'm just mostly making that up. Sorry, Joe Brady. I apologize to Joe Brady. That was mean. Maybe they love him, and they'll be sad. Who knows? But I'll take Carolina, getting the 1 week bump, whatever it is. Seattle Seahawks at the Fighting Davis Mills in Houston. Davis Mills is back, baby.
Oh, goody.
You excited?
No. I don't want to watch Davis Mills play any more football than I had to.
Who are you taking in this game? Seattle by 7.5 on the road in Houston. Get right game for Russ and the Texans.
Russ and the Texans.
I mean, who's he play for?
The Seahawks.
That could be foreshadowing. What if he's the next Texans quarterback?
Everything about this game is depressing.
No. You just change your tune. We are previewing the games. We're trying to give people something to be excited about.
We've given people a lot of exciting things this week. This is the game where there's nothing exciting. There's nothing.
Are there 9 1 o'clock games? Because that always throws me off. Because I got the 8-box mix.
Jamal Adams is out for the season.
He's
shut
out for
down.
the season.
Cunningham has been cut from the Houston Texans. This game is just like hemorrhaging interest left, right, and center. I mean, look, can Russell Wilson get back on track after the mallet finger? He has been improving week to week. Can they get the ball to their playmakers? Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. Like, the Seahawks, I guess, have more interesting ways of winning on offense, and they've started to use Dwayne Eskridge now. Now that he's back and healthy, there's still a world where this Seahawks offense is kind of interesting to watch. The Texans, I mean, they're just sad.
Just to answer the Zach Cunningham questions, because I'm sure everybody wants to know. He gets cut by the Texans here. There was late for a COVID test, or there was some off-field issues there. But he's also in the middle of his worst season of his career, 49.6 grade. I've always been a big Zach Cunningham fan. He's more of like a hashtag fun to watch guy because he's really good against the run. Not a great coverage player, despite having the skills, length and size, speed, all that stuff, right? But in a zone-heavy scheme like the Texans run here, that's not a great fit for Cunningham. I know every time somebody's released, people are like, oh, Bill Belichick will make do with that guy. But Cunningham is actually one of the guys, if he gets through waivers and actually made it to the Patriots somehow, he feels like the type of guy that would have that rejuvenated career. He'd become a blitzer, not have to play as much zone coverage, all that stuff. Just keep an eye on Cunningham hitting the waiver wire, because I still think he's a good player. Hated the fit for the Texans, and I have no idea on the off-field stuff that they were upset about. As far as Jamal Adams, there'll be plenty of offseason discussion about that whole thing, right? Seattle's team building effort, not having a first-round pick once again, being able to replenish a roster that has slowly become depleted, and whether or not Jamal Adams has been worth it. I've seen a few Seattle fans defending, tackles, and he's got some pressures, and he's been good, and it's like, he's also grading in the 40s in coverage for us each of the last 2 years. It's really tough to justify the Jamal Adams move. Not so much the move, just the results of the move, right? Because if Jamal Adams did become the player for Seattle, the guy in Los Angeles, the Chargers, if Jamal Adams played at the level that he had played at previously, would it be worth it?
No.
It'd still be tough, right? But he's not even close to that player either.
Yes, it was a terrible trade from the outset that is being made to look even worse by the fact that Jamal Adams hasn't played well, has been injured, is now missing time, and does not fit within that defense, even if he was doing all of those things. It's just that's one of the worst trades in living memory. And there have been some terrible ones. Remember, you're competing against Houston, trading a bag of potato chips for DeAndre Hopkins to get him out of the building when he's your best receiver. Like, there are some horrific trades that have gone down in recent memory in the NFL. This is one of the worst.
How is Seattle going to keep this close? They're favored by 7.5. But the Kev Clark tweet from a couple years ago that he retweets every week.
Yeah.
That Seattle never plays a normal game is so true. How are they going to keep this one close against Houston?
Jeremy Fowler reported, by the way, that multiple teams at the back end of the waiver wire are saying there's no way Zach Cunningham makes it as far as they are. He's going to get claimed by somebody by somebody pretty high up.
He's a good football player overall.
He is, but he's signed an extension. It's a big contract that somebody is picking up, even with.
I think it's low on guarantees, though.
Certainly, they converted a bunch of his money to it cost Texans a lot of dead money, I think, just to get rid of him. That's why it's one of the reasons why it's such a surprising move for them. Is that sure?
But they're in culture building mode, as we remember.
I know, but it's costly, is what I'm saying for them. And they had to really want to get the guy out of the building to make that move.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to pay for culture.
You do, or draft a guy really high to police the culture. Cleveland Farrell.
By the way, give me Seattle to cover this. I'm going nuts here.
Even though that they always play weird games.
Texans can't overcome that.
What if Davis Mills has a Davis Mills game and does to the Seahawks what he did to Bill Belichick earlier in the season?
In the dome.
All right, I'm going to lean on the idea that the Seahawks never play a normal game. Somehow Houston will keep this close.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. New Orleans Saints at the New York Jets. Saints are only favored by 5.5 here on the road against the Jets. You got the Zach Wilson watch every single week. Elijah Moore is emerging. Corey Davis is out for the season. Rest in peace, Hall of Fame status. This is going to hurt.
How many catches does he need now?
Let me go look it up while you tell me what you're looking for here in the Saints-Jets game.
Well, Taysom Hill's probably going to start another game, but his finger is not likely to be 100% so soon after spraining it or whatever he did to it in the game that he played through. So what does Taysom Hill look like in this game? It was pretty disastrous in the second half of his last performance, which is what you would expect for second half. That injury is starting to swell up. Your finger's not really working anymore. He's got to play with a splint on it at the time. Of course, he was missing people left, right, and center. What does it look like now? Is it healthy enough for him to actually be a functional NFL quarterback? And then we get to see what an offense with Taysom Hill looks like. We're in this weird situation where I kind of want to see what this Taysom Hill offense looks like with everything in optimal circumstances, just to find out what we're dealing with here. But we're not getting that, and we might not get it this week either.
Ready for Corey Davis update?
Yeah.
Can I include the playoffs?
Sure.
Okay. So to get to 1,000 career receptions, he's currently at 256, including the playoffs. That's 51 per season now that he is out for the year after just 34 catches. Really killing him here.
51 per season.
He's at 51 per season here through 5 years, which means at that pace, we only need 14 and a half more seasons of 51 catch years for Corey Davis to get to that 1,000.
Which would put him at what age?
What did I say? 14 more years?
Yeah, 14 and a half more years.
40 and a half.
So you just got to be Jerry Rice.
Yeah.
Jerry Rice played to his 40, didn't he? He's right on the edge.
Yeah. Corey Davis. We need 14 years of mediocrity.
Yeah.
Till you're 40.
Think of...
that's what Larry Fitzgerald's done the last 5 or 6 years.
Think of the scientific advances in, longevity since Jerry Rice got it done. You should easily be able to hang around until you're 40 now.
Just saying. This year, career low 34 catches he's going to end with. It's going to hurt his pace.
Yeah.
It's going to really hurt his pace. Also, the 6 drops, man. He shouldn't have dropped 6 of his 40 catchable passes this year.
That's true.
Shouldn't have done that, Corey.
I mean, if you caught every pass sent his way, he'd have a much better chance of making the playoffs.
Oh, man. I guess last year's breakout was not real for Corey Davis. Anyway, he's out for the season, and season grades were very much in line with previous years for Corey. Elijah Moore, though, it's his time to shine for the Jets, and I thought Zach Wilson looked a little bit better last week, so it's continued. Zach Wilson watch. Will he develop? And I like what you're saying about Taysom and the Saints. Let's get some more information on him because their offseason is going to be fascinating. What are they going to do with the quarterback position, right? You've got whatever this contract is that Taysom Hill has. Jameis Winston's going to be a free agent, and he's coming off the ACL. Where do the Saints go? My feeling is Sean Payton doesn't necessarily need to be in the Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, or whatever sweepstakes there are out there. If he has a step down from that, I think the Saints are back with what Sean Payton's able to do. How do you get, can he steal a Derek Carr from the Raiders or whatever? Those are the types of discussions I think will be interesting for the Saints. Where's their next quarterback coming from?
Yeah, I mean, they were one of the teams, right, that was supposedly reported that Russell Wilson would waive his no-trade clause to go to.
Now, that would be a game changer. All I'm saying is I think Peyton could do with even less.
Didn't we have that in the offseason as well? They're here are the 4 teams that Russell Wilson would be interested in, and then, obviously nothing materialized.
Was it the Bears?
I don't even remember who they were, but that was a thing, right? There was a time where, here are the 3 teams that Russell Wilson's interested in.
Raiders, Saints, and were the Bears one of them? I think Raiders, Saints, because the Bears were working hard to, make the trade, I believe.
Yeah.
Raiders, Saints, and Bears, I think.
Okay. Well, that means the Saints have been in twice.
Yeah, and they're also, as always,
what was
the cap
it?
situation
So
looks
this
worse.
time it was the Saints, the Giants, somebody else, the Broncos.
Russ is going to go to New York.
The Broncos was one of them, I think.
Russ wants the bright lights. He's sick of dreary Seattle. He wants the bright lights in New York City.
New York, New Orleans, and Denver were the 3 teams this time.
For who?
Russ.
No.
Yeah, those were the 3 teams that he was supposedly willing to.
With Gruden.
This time.
Oh.
This time around, it was New York, New Orleans, and Denver, I think, were the 3 teams that he would waive his no-trade clause to go to.
Anyway, it would help the Saints to have some more Taysom Hill data points in their offense if he's healthy.
I mean, maybe.
Give me the Saints by 5.5 in this one.
By 5.5?
Yeah. This Jets defense has just been rough, man.
Well, that's the thing. Is it shouldn't matter who their quarterback is or what they're trying to do. The Jets defense can't stop anybody doing anything. So whatever they're rolling out there in terms of offense should have success. Essentially, the only way the Saints can screw this up is if they turn the ball over a ton of times.
Which could happen. And this should be, last week we said, look, Zach Wilson's going to have maybe an easier time against an Eagles defense that will give him some holes and zones to attack. New Orleans, a lot tighter windows against this New Orleans secondary and Marcus Williams patrolling the secondary and all that. By the way, he's got some really weird, ugly plays for such a good safety.
I do think people it was a bad play, right? The Tony Pollard up the sideline thing. But I do think it was...
Gets stuck on strafe.
Yes. I do think it was slightly more understandable than people said. You're that single high safety.
You're a safety apologist.
You've got a bad angle. You're essentially... Your job is to not allow what he allowed. So it's not like he did a good job. But my point is, he essentially tried to avoid looking ridiculous and ended up looking ridiculous, right? He was desperately trying to avoid that. You shoot in, and the dude just sidesteps you, and you go careering off the sideline, and he just wanders in for the touchdown.
It looked like he just kept waiting.
Yeah, I think he's
an angle to attack.
He didn't want to get.
And Pollard was just too fast.
He didn't want to get beaten by the cutback, and I think in doing so, he just gave him too much space to get run around for speed, and he didn't anticipate how fast Pollard was going to be. And that happens. It was bad, but it's not like the people what was he even trying to do? It's not that hard to discern what his thinking was.
Anyway, give me the Saints.
Yeah, sure.
I wouldn't be surprised if whatever. Just give me the Saints. You're going to take the Saints, too. Play through all the scenarios here. Jacksonville Jaguars at the Tennessee Titans. Titans coming off a bye, favored by 8.5 here against the Jags. Do the Fighting Urban Meyers have any chance here against the Titans?
The Fighting Urban Meyers.
Are they even fighting anymore?
Well, that's another question.
Well, they're fighting internally.
Are
James
they?
Trevor wants James Robinson on the field more, and they're
just. It was weird where Urban essentially said he had no earthly idea whether or not James Robinson was going to be on the field or why.
Yeah, he said he didn't blame, but he said, "Hey, running back coach Bernie Parmalee has a rotation."
That's the coaches. Then, I mean, are you not one of the coaches? The head coach, in fact, as your title, I believe, is.
So it's
should you not be involved in that discussion?
So just hearing that quote from Urban Meyer makes me start to think his next course of action, if he's the head coach again next year and not fired, Urban Meyer comes back and he's like, "That's it. I'm doing it my way. I'm going full Frank Sinatra. We're doing it my way now. None of these former NFL coaches. I'm bringing in Darryl Bevell and all these guys with NFL experience. I'm getting my guys in here, and we're going to do it my way, the college way, whatever that way is." So I don't know. That's what I might be hearing out of Urban Meyer's voice. I tried to conform to the NFL ways a little bit with getting former NFL coaches and just stacking up the experienced coaches and everything. And Urban's going to come back and do it his way, or he's going to get fired and the Jags are just going to blow the whole thing up and start over and have a fresh start for Trevor.
Yeah, it's just It's a weird thing to be saying that, like, I just leave it up to the coaches and I don't have any input in that. You're like, well, it seems like you should have at least some input, if for no other reason than to be able to answer this specific question that's coming up. Like, when you look up and the dude that you thought was injured is back in the game,
you should have some awareness there.
Yeah, you should, or at the very minimum, you should be like, hey, what happened? Ask somebody, right? Find out, because they're going to ask you. So just have the answer to that question, even if you don't want to. I'm okay with the idea of being like, this is this guy's area, I'm going to leave him to it.
Right.
But you should know, even if you're not micromanaging it and dictating it.
I mean, I think that the idea of the running back coach controls the rotation and all that stuff, I think that's normal, right? Like, that stuff's going to happen, but the head coach is definitely going to have sight of that and everything, right? Titans, their whole thing. I was doing Titans radio today with our friend Ramon Foster and all that, and they're, what do the Titans have to do down the stretch? And my answer was, as much as we talked about Derrick Henry and he's the outlier and that's the offense, I still think it comes down to passing efficiency for the Titans. Now, how do they get there? They probably have to get there by making teams respect their rushing attack enough that Ryan Tannehill gets the one-on-ones on the outside that he has taken advantage of in the 2.5 years as the starter for the Titans.
Should they just shut everybody of consequence down? Like, just bumble their way to the playoffs and then hope that Julio Jones and A.J. Brown, et cetera, are there when they get there, then they can actually make a difference.
No, that's a fair point.
Like, they seem to be, I mean, obviously those guys haven't been healthy properly all season. Derrick Henry is gone, so that's not happening. I doubt he comes back.
There's still a hope
even
that
though
he can come back, right?
I doubt he does, even if they keep talking about that.
Julio Jones was back at practice with the hamstring injury.
Right, but so at this point, what is the purpose in sending Julio Jones out there potentially re-aggravating a hamstring injury? Like, just shut him down for another 3 weeks. Say, get healthy for the playoffs. Same with A.J. Brown. Like, they are a 97% chance of making the playoffs according to our power rankings. 95% chance of winning the division still, because Indianapolis, lost that game to Tampa Bay.
So you're going to get a home game.
So you're almost certainly going to be getting a home playoff game. Let's concentrate on that one. And by the way, they have the 32nd, i.e. easiest schedule for the rest of the game, including games like this. So send out the backups, right, and just see what happens.
Yeah, it's not a bad thought to just get healthy and again, if you're it's not going to really affect seeding a ton.
Right.
You're gonna get this home game in the playoffs, and then you just kind of be that surprise team, like, oh, look at this, we have Julio Jones and A.J. Brown back.
The worst thing that could happen for them is they rush those guys back and get them injured. Now they're out for the playoffs, or they're desperately trying to get back on track with a group that aren't really going to be relevant.
The thing about the easy schedule, though, is I think that ranking is just skewed a little bit by that you're playing the Jaguars and you're playing the Texans. So, like, at a high level, it's like, okay, we can almost guarantee those wins on paper, even though the Texans just beat them 2 weeks ago. But, like, on paper, you guarantee those wins. But the other 3 games are tough. At the Pittsburgh Steelers, against the 49ers, and against the Dolphins. Niners and Dolphins, those two, trending, don't want to play these teams type of teams. So it's not that easy for Tennessee. But even if you do go 2-3, I don't think the Colts are overtaking you in the division. So to your point is strong. The Titans could just beat the Jaguars, beat the Texans, go 2-3 down the stretch here, have 10 wins, and still beat the division winner pretty easily. Because the Colts would have to win 4 out of 5 down the stretch here. Where are you going with this one? 8.5.
I would say that Jacksonville keeps it closer than 8.5 because Tennessee is still so banged up.
I'm like 0 for a million picking the Jaguars this year. Not having it.
No?
Just not having it. Detroit Lions. Give me the Titans. Detroit Lions at the Denver Broncos. What?
Nothing.
Do we have any other ads to discuss here? I think we got everything.
Any ads to discuss?
All right, you ready? Detroit Lions have a path to the playoffs.
Oh, God.
Should I read it?
No.
Do it fast. I could do it like terms and conditions style.
You can't do it fast. It's every game remaining in the NFL.
Just the NFC. Just involving NFC teams. All right, fine. If the Lions win out, and let's see, this week would need...
a million other games go their way.
I'll just do this week's. Right. Like, how do we get to next week?
Okay.
So the Lions with 1 win have a path to the playoffs. This is per CBS Sports, NFL and CBS. For this particular week, to get to next week, just to get...
to stay alive.
To stay alive here, the Lions, they have to beat the Broncos, obviously.
Yes.
But also the Steelers need to beat the Vikings tonight. The Cowboys need to beat Washington. The Texans need to beat the Seahawks. The Jets need to beat the Saints. The Panthers need to beat the Falcons. Chargers have to beat the Giants. The Bengals need to beat the 49ers. And the Packers need to beat the Bears. Seems doable. Trying to live it. I mean, we could lose it tonight if the Vikings win.
There's not a ridiculous result in that.
And if all of nothing's ridiculous. If all of that happens, they'll stay alive just to potentially clinch the number 7 seed at 6-10-1.
6-10-1.
And then there's another 8 things that need to happen next week.
Oh yeah, every week is like that.
But by week 7, only 6 things need to happen in week 17.
Oh, perfect.
So it gets a little easier as you go. So Lions Broncos. What is the spread? 8.5 as well, just like the Tennessee game.
9.5 now.
9.5. Let's change that. Let's do 9.5. Where are you leaning in this one? What are you looking for? Anything?
I mean, yeah. Can Denver's offense bounce back? They got murdered by the Chiefs, and it was a really disappointing game for them. Like Javonte Williams looked really good carrying the ball. Okay, there was some issues, like a fumble, but he looked really good when they gave him a full workload. They still have just all those weapons at receiver, and they couldn't use any of them with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback. He played pretty terribly against Kansas City. This is Detroit. Like, this is so much easier. We are going from the game on hard mode to the game on easy mode. Teddy Bridgewater really should go out there and ball and not have a terrible game at all. And if he does that, Denver should actually be able to rack up some points. And then the other side, you've got Jared Goff throwing against the Denver defense, and that should be a win for Denver as well. So there's a reason that this line is almost double digits, and I think it should match up to that.
Goff made a few big-time throws last week.
Still had a grade in like the 50s.
He was NFC Player of the Week, I believe. NFC Player of the Week.
NFC Player of the Week.
Yeah. 3 big-time throws, the big game-winning touchdown and everything. So a little harder to throw the ball in Denver.
He had a grade of 59.
I know. Turnover-worthy plays in there, right? Couple?
Yeah, 2 of them.
Yeah, I know. Just saying, the NFC. So that was all right, I'll do it. Baseball story, really quick.
Yeah, all right.
Jason Neighborgall. Look him up. Guy used to throw 103. Got the yips. Couldn't throw a strike. During the month of August in 2006, he got 1 batter out in like 10 games. The poor guy couldn't throw a strike. I wonder if he's a listener of the podcast right now. I don't know. Maybe he is out there somewhere. Anyway.
I might have been concerned about 103.
Well, the
74.
I think it was Arizona.
Not so much.
Arizona, who had him at the time, I think it was, the Diamondbacks. They told him, don't throw over 95. Like, dumb it down to just try to throw strikes here. It wasn't working. So, I mean, he would come in, hit batters, walk batters, throw wild pitches, and then come out. He had one game where he actually got 3 out. He had an inning where he gave up like 3 runs or 2 runs. Maybe it was only 1 run. I mean, it was just like my worst inning was like his best inning type of thing. And he got player of the game because he had 1 good inning after the month of August was rough. ERA was like 1 million. And only got 1 guy out. But it was early September, late in the season. He has a somewhat clean inning, only a run, only a couple walks, only 1 hit batter. And he was declared player of the game at the end of the game. That was Jared last week. The expectations were so low that, you lead this victory, and Jared gets NFC Player of the Week.
Like 103 coming at a scattergun, who the hell knows approach would have been vaguely intimidating. 74, not so much.
No, not at all.
Like if you had been throwing in such a way that that there was a very real chance of any one of these balls hitting me, I would not have been slightly concerned in that, because such was the speed.
That's it. I'm just going to hit you next
103. Do, because then there's a chance that the ball might actually come near enough for me to hit it.
Yeah, facing him, knowing that he was capable of hitting triple digits and knowing that he had no idea where it was going.
That would have been a problem.
It was rough. I hope he's not just like somewhere listening to us now.
Rag his performance.
But it's just, look, the yips. The yips are no joke, and he got the yips.
Because
he made a ton of money. I mean, I don't feel that bad.
No,
He was
that's the thing,
made a ton of money
there's
signing bonus, even though he couldn't throw a strike.
There's a certain type of person/player where they're so rich, given like how things have gone for them in terms of career and stuff, that you don't feel bad about ragging on them. It's like, look, yeah, I kind of feel sorry for him. On the other hand, he's made $50 million. Who cares? He's living the life right now. Yeah. He can live with it. I was thinking, though, that, we didn't do the catcher part of this, right? Because we didn't have a catcher, didn't have the equipment. I was kind of looking at that and saying, look, when I was a kid in school, I played cricket. And cricket is a similar hard ball. And cricket, you don't have a mitt. You just got to catch the ball with your hands, right? Like a man. I was looking at your pitches, and I was like, I think I could catch one of those, like just barehanded.
Barehanded?
Yeah.
Stop it.
Seriously. Like, you just, you cricket it. You got to, just cushion the ball. But
you're out of your mind.
It's doable.
You're out of your mind.
People do that in cricket. Literally, that's the game of cricket. Every single game, people are out there catching it like that.
How hard do they throw?
I mean, it's coming off the bat, so pretty hard. I'm just saying, like, when I was looking at your 74-mile-an-hour pitches, I was like, I think I could catch one of those without the stupid mitt.
All right, let's do it. I mean, if you have no fear, let's just do it. I'm training this winter, and we'll come back in the spring.
You'll get right up to 76.
Yeah, I'm gonna gas it up to 76. I'm gonna train. Kelly, get the workout programs ready.
I'm just saying, we've gone from like, I will definitely injure you through the giant pillow mitt to I think I could catch one of those without a glove at all.
Yeah, arm side run, baby. Still had arm side run. You might not have seen it in the dark. Ball was running in on you. Who are you picking in this game? Lions and Broncos.
Denver.
Give me Denver.
Yeah.
As well.
The Detroit Lions had their Super Bowl again. They're not doing it again.
All right, last game of the week, I believe. Check my work. Giants at Chargers. Chargers favored by 10.
Who is playing quarterback for the Giants? It's not going to be Jake Fromm, apparently.
No.
Does that mean the neck is back out there?
No, he's still concussed.
The neck's concussed? So we're back to Daniel Jones.
I think, isn't his neck good enough? Isn't he going to be okay?
Who? The neck? Which neck? Whose neck?
Daniel Jones' neck, not the neck.
Okay.
Mike Glennon.
Daniel Jones' neck is going
he's doubtful. Now he's a limited doubtful.
So who's playing?
Maybe Kadarius Toney. Oh, he's also questionable. Toney might be the best quarterback they have left.
He's certainly the best arm they have.
Glennon concussed, didn't practice Wednesday. Jake Fromm, he's what did he say? It's like taking a final without actually
going
to class.
Then there was a report that like he's not expected to play. So who is?
Saquon Barkley's questionable. Maybe he's going to take some direct snaps. What are we even previewing? Nobody's playing. But the Chargers have their own issues. Is Keenan Allen out?
I mean, the Chargers have like minor issues in terms of, maybe a player or two. The Giants, they don't seem to have a quarterback, nor do they have their running back or one of their receivers. And they have a terrible offensive line. Chris
Harris, Keenan Allen, both out. Mike Williams was a close contact. He's declared out too? I thought they said I thought him and Chris Harris could play per yesterday, but now on ESPN.com they're saying out. Injury report. Could be a factor.
This isn't the best preview we've ever done.
Well, no, we don't know who's playing.
That's what I'm saying. That's why it's not the best injury report we've ever done.
Well, that's a problem.
Yeah. So Glennon's not. He did not participate at all, concussed. Let's say he's out. Daniel Jones must be the starter if they're saying that Jake Fromm isn't going to start.
Well, I don't think the Giants have much of a shot no matter who the quarterback is. I think the 10 points, is it still a 10? Has that changed?
They have a better chance if Daniel Jones is playing than if Jake Fromm is.
A much better job, but he's doubtful. Doubtful is Really doubtful.
Though Jake Fromm did put up some numbers against Alabama.
He did. Doesn't have a great arm.
No.
Small hands guy as well.
Small hands guy.
Flips the ball, like spins it all the time when he catches it in the shotgun. Kind of like throws off his timing. It's a little weird.
Why?
He just does like an extra spin instead of just like catch and throw. I don't know. What are you watching for in this game?
I mean, well, that will be a kind of comedy of errors in and of itself. That'll be pretty funny. Just who the Giants have on offense, and therefore what they're capable of achieving. And then look, Justin Herbert is always like, they actually let him open it up a bit more last week. He had a high average depth of target, over 10, had more big time throws than we've seen from him. Was that just a random blip against Cincinnati, or are they actually going to open this up and have him be more aggressive?
By the way, breaking news, Mike McCarthy is guaranteed a win this week against the Washington football team. I just think that might be more interesting than the Giants-Chargers preview here.
Why did he do that?
I don't know. We're going to win this game. I'm confident in that. That's
wow.
a quote, Mike McCarthy.
Okay.
As Will Brinson quote tweeted it, guaranteeing a road division win. What could go wrong? Lindsey Rhodes. I don't know, Will. Things usually go as expected in the NFL. Yeah. I don't know. That's a little risky.
Yeah.
By Mike. Now, the Chargers, if they went in guaranteed victory, maybe they'd be okay. But, 10 points. Yeah, the Justin Herbert development continues to be, I think, a really interesting story, right? When you put more on his plate, again, at a high level, I think this year, Herbert's done a really nice job on the underneath stuff, right? And making good decisions and taking care of the ball. We do want to see him throw the ball down the field more. It was good to see that last week, even though, whatever, a jump ball turns into a touchdown, another jump ball turns into an interception, essentially. But I think that's what makes this Chargers team potentially dangerous, and that's going to be the storyline coming out next Thursday. They're going to play the Chiefs a week from today on Thursday Night Football. So Chargers get through this game. They got the huge game against the Chiefs on Thursday night, and we're probably going to say the same thing. Be aggressive against this Chiefs defense.
So we appear to be back to Jake Fromm likely to start again. Jake Fromm, by the way, so PFF's power rankings page, we give a list of quarterbacks and then how much that quarterback is worth to the betting line relative to a replacement level player. So Tom Brady. If Tom Brady's not in the lineup, the line moves 8 points in the opposite direction. That's how much Tom Brady is worth to the spread. Mahomes, 7.5. Jake Fromm is the only player on this page who is apparently worth negative points.
Ouch.
Versus a replacement level quarterback. Essentially, the PFF numbers are saying that Jake Fromm is a point worse on the betting line than just a replacement level quarterback grabbed off the street and thrown in there. Poor Jake Fromm. That's harsh.
It is.
For a
92 grade for the Bills in preseason week 3 this week.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. For a man that put up some numbers against Alabama, had a 92 preseason grade in one game.
Yeah, he was a good starting quarterback for Georgia. He essentially, look, the Georgia Bulldogs chose him over Jacob Eason and Justin Fields.
Yeah. The Eason thing isn't looking terrible, but the Fields thing a little bit less.
Just saying. They had faith in the way Jake Fromm runs the offense. He had 3 grades in the 80s at Georgia. Generally took good care of the ball. He's in that game manager type of style. And but it's like Alex Smithian too, because he probably takes too many sacks. So there's some negative plays in there, even though he's not going to throw as many interceptions. So that would be the thing to keep an eye on in this game. If the Giants are going to move the ball with Jake Fromm at quarterback, it's going to be a whole bunch of smart underneath passes and taking care of it and shortening the game against the Chargers here.
Yeah,
but I'll be watching Herbert and his development here, as always.
Yeah, I do want to see if that was just a random game against Cincinnati or if they are moving towards opening it up and letting him or forcing him, just generally getting their stuff together and attacking more as an offense, because I think they need to do that to compete with the best teams.
I'll take the Chargers. Where are you going?
Yeah. Regardless of Giants quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. Chargers by 10. We'll take it. Is that every game?
Sure.
It's 13 of them. We got 4 teams on bye. We already did Thursday Night Football yesterday. Quick math tells me that's it for Week 14.
Done.
All right. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll be back here Monday. Don't forget, PFF.com. You get 25% off using the promo code NFLPOD. Send us feedback on our subscription services, right? At contact@pff.com. And then follow at PFF NFL Pod because the Bill Polian book is on the line. We'll be sending that to one lucky follower at some point once we get to 1,000, maybe 2,000 followers. But things moving quick. We appreciate everybody for following us on Twitter. Good to go?
Yeah.
Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll see you Monday morning.